What began as a simple act of pity turned into something I never expected, a tangled thread of affection weaving us together. I wasn't trying to play the hero. I wasn't a saint. She was just my late friend's daughter, standing there at the funeral with nowhere to go, looking so lost it almost hurt to watch. I thought I was just giving her a roof for a few days. But what I really did was invite a wolf into my home. It happened at the cemetery. I was ready to leave until I noticed her. She stood surrounded by so-called relatives, their voices dripping with false kindness, promises to take care of her, while their eyes were already fixed on her inheritance. I looked at her mother's grave, at that familiar gentle smile carved into the headstone, and thought bitterly, you trusted them too much. I told myself I wasn't going to step in. This wasn't my fight. But then she lifted her head. Her eyes, red, cornered, unyielding, met mine. And in that second, I saw myself, a stray backed into a corner, teeth bared at the world. I couldn't walk away. Hey, I called out with a smirk. Want to come live with me? The crowd bristled, but I ignored them. I told her the truth. I'd take her in, but the inheritance? That was her battle to win. The choice was hers. And in the end, she chose me. Bringing her home wasn't easy. The silence in my apartment felt heavier with her in it, like I'd let a stranger step into a life I'd kept sealed shut. I buried myself in work, convincing myself it was just temporary. But the next morning changed everything. I found her sitting at my table, stiff and silent, a piece of paper sliding across toward me. It wasn't a thank you. It was a contract, her promise to repay every expense with interest after graduation. I almost laughed, but when I looked at her, really looked, I understood. This wasn't about money. It was about pride, the only thing she had left to hold on to. So I signed it. And in that moment, watching her shoulders finally relax, I realized this wasn't just a girl I'd taken in. This was the beginning of something neither of us had seen coming. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "If you don't sign it, I'm not staying." God, she was infuriating, dramatic, stubborn, but when I saw that fire in her eyes, the straightness of her back against the morning light, I realized it wasn't drama. It was survival. That paper wasn't just a contract. It was the last thread of pride she had left. So I sat back down, took the pen, and signed my name, Ethan Vance. Her relief was instant. The tension left her shoulders, and for the first time, I caught a glimpse of the girl behind all that steel. I gave her a small smile. Get ready. We'll grab breakfast, then hit the supermarket. School starts in 2 weeks, right? We'll get you set up. She nodded, calm and composed, even as I teased about her relatives already picking apart her home. From now on, I told her she could just call me Mr. Vance was too stiff. Ethan felt strange, but that felt manageable. She tried it out with a small smile, then added softly, I can cook. We don't have to eat out. Of course, the moment she opened my fridge, reality hit. Beer? Nothing but beer. So breakfast out it was. Later, we stopped by her old house. I waited in the car, watching her disappear inside. She came back less than 30 minutes later, carrying only a photo of her mom, a few books, and some clothes. Her eyes were red, her face pale. Whatever words had been thrown at her in there, she carried them alone. I didn't ask. Some battles you have to fight by yourself. At the supermarket, I told her to pick what she needed. My phone rang. Clara. The second I answered, her voice screeched through the line. Ethan, I need cheering up. I sighed. Another blind date gone wrong. Another fight with her father. Another request to crash in my guest room. I told her it was taken. She immediately accused me of hiding a lover. My headache doubled. When I explained about Chloe, Clara's excitement shifted into determination. She insisted on taking her out for lunch. So, when Chloe came back with a cart stacked full of groceries instead of toiletries, I gave her a questioning look. She answered quietly, I'll cook from now on. Eating out's expensive and not healthy. The cashier gave us a knowing glance, and I felt heat crawl up my neck. We met Clara at the restaurant. She lit up the second she saw Chloe. With her usual theatrics, she pulled me aside, dropping her smile like a mask. Ethan Vance, tell me the truth. You didn't bring her home just because she's pretty, did you? I glared. She pushed further. Don't tell me. You want to play, Dad? I nearly spit my water across the table. Clara burst into laughter, swatting me with a napkin. That was Clara. Sharp, nosy, relentless. But when her eyes softened, her voice dropped. Look, I don't know why you brought her home. And if you don't want to say, I won't ask. But raising a kid isn't easy. If you need anything, call me. Don't try to do it all alone. I brushed it off like I always did, but her words stuck with me. That night, I went to a furniture store and ordered a wardrobe, a desk, a chair, everything a real room should have. From that moment on, the guest room wasn't just a guest room. It was hers. That evening, I woke up to the smell of food drifting through the apartment. Rubbing the sleep from my eyes, I walked into the living room and froze. Under the glow of the warm lights, Chloe was carrying plate after plate out of the kitchen. A full spread. For me. I stared at the table, then at her, wondering if I'd somehow brought home a magical house elf instead of a teenage girl. She flushed a little, murmuring, I didn't know what you like, so I made a few things. I might have overdone it. Sorry. I waved her off, sat down, still dazed. It had been years since anyone had cooked for me. So this is what it felt like to come home to a warm meal. Days passed quietly after that. She didn't talk much, and neither did I. I buried myself in design work or meetings with Clara. Meanwhile, the apartment stayed spotless, and little touches began to appear. Potted plants on the balcony, order where there had been chaos. 2 weeks later, it was Chloe's first day of school. When I took her to register, I learned she'd been first in her class last semester. So that's what she meant by decent grades. She blushed, trying to hide her pride, and I couldn't help but smile. She really was like a cat, quiet but glowing when you finally noticed her. I bought her a bicycle so she wouldn't need to board at school, and just like that, she stepped into her junior year while I drowned myself in work. Then came fall break and the fever. The moment I slowed down, my body gave out. Alone in the apartment, I grabbed random pills, washed them down with cold water, and collapsed back into bed. I thought I'd ride it out the way I always had. But that night, I heard footsteps in the living room. Instinct had me grabbing a heavy book like a weapon, only to find Chloe standing there, holding a thermometer. She pressed it against my forehead, her expression darkening. You've got a fever. I croaked out, why are you here? You should be at your retreat. Her lips pressed into a line. I came back for a book. When I saw the medicine, I knew. I told my teacher I couldn't go. I tried to wave her off, insisted I could take care of myself. She held up the empty glass I'd used. Really? Cold water and random pills? That's your idea of care? For a moment, it felt like I was the child and she was the adult. She didn't argue further, just slipped out to buy proper medicine. When she came back, cheeks flushed from running, she knelt in front of me, reading the instructions carefully before pressing a warm cup of water into my hands. I sat there stunned. I wasn't used to being taken care of. Not like this. Chloe never returned to her retreat. She stayed home instead. Under her watch, I got better quickly. We settled into a quiet rhythm. Groceries, old movies, evening walks. Not much talking, but somehow it was enough. On the last day of break, Clara showed up with bags of groceries and her usual dramatics. The first thing out of her mouth was, he's back. She meant Julian, the man she never stopped refusing, but also never really let go of. While Chloe busied herself in the kitchen, Clara raided my fridge only to find no beer. Just food. She turned to me with wide eyes, but before I could answer, Chloe appeared with a bottle of wine from the cabinet. He just got over being sick, she said softly. He shouldn't drink. My stomach dropped. Clara's head snapped toward me, outrage written all over her face. Seconds later, she was chewing me out for hiding the fact that I'd been sick. I brushed it off. It was just a cold. But deep down, I knew Chloe had done that on purpose. So I changed the subject. Julian's back, huh? Clara's shoulders sagged as she admitted. Yeah, he called. Said he wants to get back together. She slammed her glass down, anger sparking in her eyes. Who does he think he is? Why would he assume I'd just be waiting? She tried to laugh it off, but I could see the cracks forming. So I held out my hand. Then give me your phone. I'll call him. I'll tell him to leave you alone for good. For a moment, Clara just froze, then hugged her phone tight against her chest like a squirrel guarding a nut. What are you doing? You're making fun of me, too. I sighed softer this time. No, Clara. I'm just trying to get you to be honest with yourself. Her voice wavered, heavy with old wounds. He can't just vanish for years, then show up like nothing happened. That's not fair. I stepped closer, laid a hand on her shoulder. Then don't let him. Make him work for it. By the time Chloe brought out dinner, Clara had drained the wine. She waved at Chloe to drink with her, insisting she was almost an adult. I tried to stop it, but Chloe quietly raised her glass, and I knew there was no winning. Dinner dragged on. Clara's laughter was loud, but her eyes gave her away. Pain that deep only came from love, once given without restraint. By the end, Chloe was tipsy, and Clara was swearing Julian had to come pick her up. My temples throbbed. I tucked Chloe into bed. She mumbled something about cleaning the dishes tomorrow, like a little old lady, and then went back to Clara. She slouched on the couch, her bravado slipping. I knelt down. You sure you want to call him now? You're not even that drunk. Her silence stretched. Finally, her voice broke. I miss him. That was all I needed. I dialed Julian myself and gave him my address. Half an hour later, the doorbell rang. Clara straightened, poured herself another drink, and slumped back, pretending. Julian looked older, colder, but when his eyes landed on her, the mask cracked. He crossed the room in seconds, pulling her into his arms, whispering her name like a prayer. For a moment, I was back in college, back when Clara would fake being drunk and Julian would always come running. The past and present overlapped so seamlessly it was almost cruel. He half carried her out, and as she buried her face in his neck, I called out, Julian, Clara's my best friend. This is the last time I'm helping you. Don't make me regret it. He met my eyes, steady, and nodded. Thank you. The next day at the studio, Clara showed up late with a mark on her neck. She rushed to explain, I haven't agreed to anything yet, but we both knew how this story would end. Push and pull, denial and surrender. She was brave enough to give her heart away again. And me? I couldn't help but envy her for it. Work picked up, and on quiet afternoons while Chloe was at school, I'd find myself at the train station, watching strangers come and go. To them, life moved forward. For me, time felt stuck, both standing still and slipping through my fingers. And just like that, New Year's Eve arrived. I was in the supermarket buying flour. Chloe had secretly learned how to cook my favorite crispy pork, and tonight she wanted to surprise me. Then my phone rang. It was my father. I hadn't heard his voice in years. He didn't waste a second. The woman found a letter. From your mother. Come get it. Then he hung up. That woman was my stepmother, barely older than me. I texted Chloe, then drove back to that house I once called home. She opened the door, nervous, and handed me the envelope like it might burn her fingers. My father's voice cut through the room, sharp as ever. Forgot your manners, Ethan. I ignored him. The letter. She rushed to fetch it, plastering on a smile. Why don't you stay for dinner? I snatched the envelope. My patience is gone. Behind me, my father's voice thundered. Why are you even asking him? I don't have a son. I didn't turn back. Not once. I kept walking until I was in my car, the letter trembling in my hand. Opening it felt like stepping into another world. The handwriting was hers. Familiar. Unmistakable. My dearest Ethan. And just like that, time collapsed around me. I folded the letter shut before I could finish, my chest tightening. A laugh escaped me, sharp, broken, almost bitter. My mother. She was soft, gentle, a woman who found refuge in books. My father? A man who only knew money. He'd chased her with relentless charm, worn down her defenses, even won over my grandmother. And in the end, she married him, not out of love, but out of pressure. At first, he treated her well. For a while, our family knew something close to happiness. But then her health began to fail, and the man who once adored her grew restless. Other women came into the picture. My mother begged him for a divorce, but he refused, trapping her in a loveless home. When her illness worsened, she was hospitalized. And that night, her most critical night, I waited outside the operating room, my eyes burning, clutching my phone like a lifeline. I called him again and again, texted until the battery died. But he never came. When the light above the operating room flickered off, and they wheeled her out beneath a white sheet. A nurse asked where her husband was. I had no answer. He arrived later, disheveled, a fresh mark on his neck. While my mother fought for her life, he was in someone else's arms. Less than a month after she was gone, he announced he was remarrying. I fought him, but he told me if I didn't like it, I could leave. And so I did. 16 years old, no home, no family. I survived the only way I could. Cheap labor, odd jobs, the kind of work where men prey on kids who don't know any better. Life was harsh, but it was mine. And then I met Chloe's mother, a kind woman who saw something in me worth saving. She pulled me back into school, back into something resembling a future. The memory cracked apart as I blinked back into the present. Chloe was waiting at home, standing under the warm glow of the lamp when I opened the door. She didn't ask about the letter, didn't ask about the shadows in my eyes. She just disappeared into the kitchen to warm up dinner. That night, we sat on opposite ends of the sofa, no TV, no noise, just silence that felt too heavy. So I asked her to play music. And as the clock struck midnight, fireworks lit up the night outside while a woman's voice sang softly from the speakers. People come and people go. The only constant in this world is change. Not long after, I noticed Chloe changing too. She'd come home with something on her mind, eyes lingering on me, but lips refusing to speak. Until one night, towel draped over my shoulders, I caught her staring. "All right, what is it?" I pressed. She hesitated, cheeks burning. "There's a parent-teacher conference tomorrow." I paused. I had plans. I hesitated, and she noticed. "It's okay," she whispered. "You don't have to go." But the way her eyes dimmed told me she wanted me there. So I asked the time. Her face lit up instantly. The next morning, I sat at her desk, flipping through her books, waiting. And then, like venom in the air, a woman's voice cut through the room. Chloe's aunt, dressed in heavy makeup, sneering for all to hear. Her father's dead, her mother's gone. I offer to take her in, but then this man appears, and suddenly she's bewitched. Who knows what's really going on between them? The whispers started immediately, parents' eyes shifting. Their judgment wasn't for me. I could take it. But for Chloe, she didn't deserve this weight. At the cemetery, the memory flashed in my head, and I turned to her with a calm voice. "You're very loud." Before she could bite back, I kept going. "I was there that day, when you all circled Chloe's mother, pushing her to choose. You spoke about raising her, but everyone could see it wasn't about love. It was about money. That inheritance. Some aunt you are." Her face twisted, words tripping over themselves. "What nonsense. I'm her aunt. Why would I hurt her?" I smiled, pulling out my phone as if searching for a file. Funny thing, I happened to be recording that day. The panic was instant. Her hand shot out, reaching for my phone, but I lifted it just beyond her grasp. And then, salvation for her, the teacher walked in. She exhaled, shaky, and hissed, "I don't have time for this," before scurrying back to her seat. Well, she didn't know. I hadn't recorded a thing. It was all bluff. But the way she lunged for my phone, anyone watching knew enough. The meeting moved on, her silence suddenly ironclad. And when the teacher praised Chloe for topping her entire year, I leaned back, turned to her aunt, and gave her the slowest, most deliberate smile. She shot daggers at me with her eyes, but I'd already won. When the meeting ended, she bolted for the door first. I hung back, waiting for the room to clear. But at the doorway, a boy stopped me, nervous, fists clenched like he was holding courage together with both hands. "Is it true? What her aunt said? Are you and Chloe involved?" His voice shook, but his gaze didn't. I tilted my head, leaning against the desk. "I'm guessing you like her. Or maybe you just want to be her friend." The red in his cheeks gave him away. He didn't answer. I stood straight, letting the humor fade. Don't let gossip guide you. If you like her, if you want to know her, have the courage to ask her yourself. Not me. Not anyone else. His face paled, so I softened. There's nothing between us like that. I was just a friend of her mother's. But don't let other people's words decide who she is to you. I walked past him, phone in hand, ready to text Chloe that I'd be leaving. But then, I saw her, standing just around the corner. Silent, watching. The boy froze, then bolted down the hall like his soul was on fire. I tried to lighten the moment, grinning. Not going to chase after your admirer? Her eyes flicked to me, unreadable, childish. That was Chloe, a puzzle I couldn't solve. Sometimes she was small, careful, like someone afraid of being a burden. Other times, she showed flashes of sharpness, of maturity beyond her years. And I always wondered, was that the real her? I shook it off. I've got to go. Running late, I said, heading toward the lot. But footsteps followed. Why are you trailing me? Don't you have class? She caught up. Teacher gave the rest of the day off. Then go home. I started, but she cut in. Where are you going? Can I come? She was strangely clingy, and then an idea sparked. I leaned closer, teasing. Do you know how to play chess? Her eyes flickered, confusion, then panic, but she nodded anyway. And so I drove her to an assisted living facility to see my old college professor, Davis. On the way, a nurse picked up the phone, the old man shouting in the background, "Tell him not to bother coming." I just laughed. We'll be there in half an hour. When we arrived, his back was turned, his stubborn pride on full display. I raised my voice cheerfully. "Professor Davis, your star pupil is here." His shoulders twitched. He couldn't resist turning, though his face was gruff. I have no such shameless student. I nudged Chloe forward. She plays chess, I offered. And just like that, his eyes lit up. Chess was his world. He had no children, no wife anymore, only the board and its pieces. He once tried to teach me, but I was hopeless, so he gave up. And yet, here was Chloe, calm, serene, matching him move for move. I slipped out, spoke to his doctor, paid his fees for the year, knowing I'd get yelled at later. By the time I returned, soup in hand, the two of them were still locked in battle. The professor's brow furrowed, Chloe's face unreadable. Was he actually losing? The smell of soup finally broke him. His face brightened. "Chloe, my dear, let's eat first." Less than an hour, and already he was calling her my dear. I caught her looking at me then, a little proud smile tugging at her lips. After lunch, the game ended in a draw. Chloe and I wheeled the professor outside to catch the sun. When the wind picked up, he refused to go back in, so I asked Chloe to fetch a blanket. As we watched her walk away, the professor spoke softly. "She's a good kid." I laughed, teasing him. "You've known her for only a few hours, and you're already convinced?" But Professor Davis wasn't joking. To him, chess revealed character. Chloe's patience, her steady play, her respect without submission. He saw it all. "She only holds back around you," he added. Then, almost like fate itself, he reminded me. Her mother once saved me, and now, somehow, I was saving her. His words caught me off guard. I tried to deflect with humor. "Careful, Professor. Praise her too much, and I'll get jealous." He just clicked his tongue and scolded me for not visiting sooner. In the distance, Chloe was making her way back, arms full with a blanket and my jacket. The professor nodded toward her. "See? I told you she was a good kid." I stayed quiet. That afternoon stretched longer than I expected. Chess, laughter, even dinner. By the end, he was reluctant to let her leave. Chloe had that effect on people. She had it on Clara. She had it on him. And if I was honest, without Chloe's mother's persistence, Clara's shamelessness, and the professor's nagging, I would have lived out my life alone. On the drive back, the professor called. I put him on speaker. Mistake. His voice roared through the car. "Did you pay my fees again? How many times do I have to tell you? I don't need your money." I pulled over, cleared my throat, and answered gently. "I know you don't, Professor, but let me. Call it payback for all the meals your wife cooked me in college. This is me settling the bill. Who charges that much for a meal anyway?" That only made him angrier. "If my wife knew, she'd kill me," he shouted, his voice breaking with age and stubbornness. I let him vent, silent, until he threatened to refund me. That's when I dug in. "If you do, I'll never bring Chloe over for chess again." The line went quiet. And then, click, he hung up. For a moment, the car was still. Then Chloe burst into laughter. I followed. Sometimes that was the only way to survive these small battles. Days later, I was back at the facility, bracing myself for another scolding. But by the end, he simply made me promise to bring Chloe next time. By spring, though, Chloe's world grew heavier. Her junior year meant endless work, a future to chase. At the conference, I noticed her desk, Her goal, the best law school in the country. I never pressured her. She carried that weight on her own, as if she had something to prove. Still, we visited the professor when we could. Summer crept closer, hotter. I wouldn't have remembered break at all if Clara hadn't called. Come on, Ethan. Bring Chloe. You love surfing. She could use a break. I leaned back, watching Chloe peel an orange at the coffee table. Too hot this year, I said lazily. Clara nearly shouted. With a body like yours, it's a crime not to show it off. I was sure Chloe heard. Her ears flushed red as she handed me a slice of orange. Her voice was quiet, persuasive. We should go. At the airport, Clara wasn't alone. Julian was trailing behind with his suitcase. Clara fumed, venting to me. This man just showed up and invited himself. Julian met my gaze, his expression soft, almost pitiful. I don't have many friends here. You don't mind, do you? Clara rolled her eyes. Keep playing the victim. I just laughed. But Chloe, ever steady, whispered, the more the merrier. As we checked in, Clara leaned close, her eyes on Chloe. Tell me I'm not crazy. Doesn't she seem more poised lately? More beautiful? And the two of you, God, you look good together. I sighed. Behave, Clara. She huffed. You're such an old man. But my mind drifted back to that night she'd offered me an orange slice and teased, now you owe me. I'd laughed, but I'd agreed. Strange how little moments could stay with you. On the plane, Julian somehow switched seats to sit beside Clara. I drifted off listening to her pouting and his soft attempts to soothe her. When the jolt of landing woke me, I realized my head had been resting on Chloe's shoulder. It took a moment to sink in. Chloe's breath brushed against my ear. You're awake. We've landed. Too close. My chest tightened. I shot upright, telling myself it was just the turbulence, but my heart knew better. As we walked off the plane, I noticed both Chloe and Julian rubbing their shoulders. Clara caught my eye, but neither of us said a word. Then came the hotel, 2 rooms booked, 3 of them, plus me. The math didn't add up. Julian, awkward as ever, grabbed his own key card, sneaking glances at Clara, who was too busy pulling Chloe toward the elevator to notice. That's when I threw him a lifeline. Julian, your stomach's acting up again. For a split second, confusion flickered across his face. Then he caught on, clutching his gut and groaning like a dying man. Clara's panic was instant. She rushed to him, hands fluttering, asking about medicine, worry written all over her. I stepped in with the perfect push. You should stay with him, Clara, just in case. We'll all meet later. And just like that, the plan was set. On the way to our rooms, Chloe tilted her head, voice steady. You two were lying. I pressed a finger to my lips, smirking. It's a secret. When I woke hours later, sunset painted my room in gold. Chloe's call pulled me back to reality. Clara and Julian were already waiting downstairs. I joined her in the hall, only for Clara to spot me and scoff, dragging Chloe away like a prize she refused to share. Julian trailed behind with an apologetic smile. He confessed, of course, told her the stomachache was fake. Too honest for his own good. Dinner was on me. Seafood by the coast was non-negotiable, though Chloe quietly ordered a few dishes I could actually eat. Clara caught it immediately, narrowing her eyes with suspicion, until I pushed a bowl of shrimp toward her with a grin. Forgive me, Your Highness. She popped one in her mouth, chewing theatrically before granting me a huff of forgiveness. Julian tried the same trick with a crab, but Clara shut him down with a glare. His face fell, and I had to stare hard at my plate to keep from laughing. Afterward, Clara demanded a beachside bar. She and Chloe whispered ahead, while Julian and I hung back. That's when he confessed, voice low, almost shy. I'm not letting her go again. I nodded. Good. He smiled. And you? You and Chloe. The question caught me off guard. I brushed it off, but the weight of it lingered. Inside the bar, Clara turned her irritation into a game. She challenged me. Whoever got hit on more times would win, the loser paying the bill. I refused at first, but her sharp look told me it wasn't about the game. It was punishment, for Julian, for earlier. I sighed, agreed, and took my drink. Chloe reached out to stop me, but Clara's eyes silenced her. With a gentle pat on her hand, I pulled away. I played half-heartedly, swatting off strangers while keeping one eye on Clara. She was spiraling, drinking too much, laughing too loud. I was just about to intervene when Julian finally stepped up. He crossed the room, pulled her into his arms, and kissed her. Gasps, whistles, then silence. The man hovering over her slunk away, and Julian shot me a nod before guiding her out. Relief washed over me, right until I turned back and found another woman pressing for my number. Before I could refuse, Chloe appeared, fierce, unshakable. "I'm here to take him home." The stranger frowned, still demanding my number, and that's when Chloe rattled one off. Not mine, hers. She gripped my wrist, pulling me out into the night, the sea breeze cutting through the haze. She finally let go, walking quietly beside me, head down, silence stretching between us. But the weight of her presence was louder than anything she could have said. I laughed when she asked if I'd wanted to give that stranger my number. Of course not. I told her I could have handled it on my own, and that her number was her private business. She looked at me with an intensity that stopped me cold. "I'll be there every time." The certainty in her voice shook me more than I wanted to admit. We walked in silence until she called out softly behind me. "Ethan." I turned, the sea breeze tugging at my shirt as the city lights painted her face in gold. Her eyes were shining, almost trembling with something unspoken. "My 18th birthday is coming up. Can I ask you for one wish?" Her voice carried on the wind, but all I felt was the weight pressing in my chest. I stared at her, trying to understand, but the earnestness in her gaze made me want to step back. Seconds stretched. Then, almost reluctantly, I murmured, "We'll see." I didn't miss the flicker of disappointment that crossed her face before she turned away. The next day, Clara and Julian didn't show up until well past noon. Clara, wrapped in a scarf despite the heat, leaned against Julian's shoulder, looking pale and drained. "I'm exhausted. I'll just watch from the shore," she said weakly. Julian looked smug, his hand rubbing gentle circles on her back. I gave him a thumbs up, earning myself a furious blush from Clara. We joked all the way to the beach, crowded with sun-kissed strangers in swimsuits. Chloe couldn't swim, Julian was glued to Clara, so I was the only one heading into the water. As I peeled off my t-shirt, Clara smirked knowingly. "See? Just like I said, perfect." I ignored her, slathering sunscreen on, but her eyes flicked toward Chloe. And that's when I saw it. Chloe, glaring at the crowd like a wolf cub protecting its territory. When I told her to relax, she stepped in front of me, closer than she'd ever dared before. I stumbled half a step back. "You're a little close." She didn't move. Instead, she picked up my shirt and held it out. "Put this on." Her voice was sharp, but her eyes were pleading. Something in me jolted. Clara cut in with teasing diplomacy. She went to the trouble. "Just put it on." I sighed, tugged the shirt back over my head, and grabbed my board, trying to shake off the strange tension burning between us. Out on the waves, the adrenaline took over. I pushed too far, too hard, chasing that rush. And when I misjudged the wall of water, it slammed me under like a rag doll. My first thought was bitter disappointment, failed again. When I finally surfaced, gasping, I saw them on shore. Clara crying, Julian rushing, and Chloe already waist-deep, charging toward me, even though she couldn't swim. My chest dropped. I waved, showing I was fine, and paddled back. But when I stepped onto the sand, Clara's palm cracked against my shoulder. "Ethan Vance." She shouted my full name, always a bad sign. "How many times have I told you not to chase danger for the thrill? You scare me half to death." I apologized quickly, but her fury shifted. She whirled on Chloe. "And you, what were you thinking? You can't even swim. Were you trying to save him or kill yourself?" Julian pulled her back, murmuring comfort, but her glare burned holes through both of us before she stormed away. When the dust settled, Chloe was still standing there, pale, lips pressed tight, chest rising and falling like she couldn't catch her breath. Finally, her voice cracked through the silence. "Do you really have nothing and no one to live for?" Her words hit harder than the wave. Because she was right. I've been reckless not just for the thrill, but because I had nothing tethering me. No reason to care what happened if I didn't surface again. And somehow, she'd seen that in me clearer than I ever had. I clenched my fists, fighting the truth. I told her not to run in like that again, that I knew my limits, that I could handle myself. But the look in her eyes told me she wasn't buying it. For the first time, I saw her truly angry. She turned and walked away, and all I could do was follow in silence, knowing something fragile between us had cracked. The rest of the trip, no matter what I said or did, I couldn't find my way back in her good graces. Clara had Julia now, so she'd be fine. Professor Davis was taken care of. His facility bills would always be covered from my account. Everything, in its own way, was settled. And Chloe, well, she was different. To me, she was never someone I could keep. She was just a fellow traveler, walking the same road for a while. One day, she'd find her wings. And with her stubborn pride, her sharp mind, and her quiet strength, I knew she'd be more than fine. So when she looked at me and asked if I had anything to live for, I had an answer, but it was one I couldn't give her. Some truths are too heavy, too raw, to say out loud. Even angry with me, she still stayed close, walking beside me, silent but present. On the last day of the trip, the four of us sat on the beach, the sky burning orange as the sun slid into the sea. Clara whispered to Julian, and I stepped away to the rocks, giving them space. Chloe followed. She didn't say a word, just sat next to me, her gaze locked on the sinking horizon. The waves crashed softly against the stone, the breeze carrying that fleeting summer chill. And then, just as the last light disappeared, she finally spoke. "Ethan, when we get back, I'm going to learn how to swim." Her voice was steady, almost solemn, as if it were more than just about water. I heard myself reply, low and quiet, "Okay." After summer break, her birthday crept up. I asked if she wanted to celebrate. Maybe go out somewhere, but she shook her head. She just wanted something small at home with Claire and Julian. Birthdays never mattered much to me, so I let her do whatever she wanted. But I couldn't help noticing Clara whispering into her phone at the studio, Chloe glued to her screen after school. I didn't pry. Some things, I thought, were better left untouched. It wasn't until the day itself that I realized something was happening behind my back. Clara and Julian dragged me across town for a cake, insisting on a bakery halfway across the city. By the time we returned, night had already fallen. Clara stopped me at the door, telling me to use my key. I sighed, confused, and unlocked it. The apartment was dark, except for the candles. A trail of them lined the hallway, flickering all the way into the living room. And there, in the glow, stood Chloe, a bouquet in her hands. Her eyes locked on mine. I froze. Clara nudged me forward with a smile. "Go on," she whispered. And in that instant, I understood. My chest tightened. My heart sank. This wasn't a celebration. This was something else. "You two were in on this," I muttered, my voice sharper than I meant. Clara's smile faltered. She tugged at my sleeve, trying to lighten the mood. "Why are you being so serious?" Chloe just wanted. "Clara." My tone cut her off. Julian, sensing the tension, pulled her back. I didn't even look at Chloe. The silence was suffocating. Finally, I muttered, "I just remembered some work at the studio. You guys eat without me." I turned to leave. But then Chloe's voice rang out, panicked, breaking. The lights flicked on. "Ethan, wait. It's my birthday. I wanted to decorate a little. The flowers, there was a promotion at the shop. They were free. I just picked them up when you came back." Her words tumbled out in fragments, thin and trembling. Half excuses, half truth. Julian stepped in, his calm steady. "The work can wait. Let's just eat. It's Chloe's birthday." I let out a long breath, forcing a smile her way. "Happy birthday." She blinked, then quickly began gathering the candles, muttering under her breath about putting them away. She tried to distract us with food, crispy pork, my favorite. I didn't know how to feel. The meal was heavy with unspoken words. Clara quiet with hurt. Julian quiet by nature. Chloe nervously filling my plate until I kept sliding it aside. Eventually, she stopped trying. Then came the cake. She closed her eyes, whispering a wish I couldn't hear. I studied her face, no longer a child's, not yet fully grown. Something rare, suspended in between. When she opened her eyes, our gazes collided. I looked away too quickly. I handed her the gift I'd brought. A simple watch. The same one I'd once caught her admiring behind glass. "I hope you have a bright future," I said. Her surprise was raw, almost vulnerable, as her eyes lifted to mine again. And in that moment, her look made me uneasy. Later, while Chloe and Julian washed the dishes, Clara and I sat on the balcony. The night air was cool, the city lights glowing below. She turned to me. "You already knew, didn't you?" I stayed quiet, staring at the skyline. "She's just a kid," I finally said. "She doesn't know what she's feeling. She's confusing gratitude for something more. I help her when she had no one. She's loyal. She thinks it means love. But I'm older. I'd be letting her throw her future away. She'll see the world, meet new people, and realize what she feels now doesn't matter. And besides, her mother was my friend." Clara shook her head softly. "You're right, and you're wrong. Everything you just said is about her future. But the real question is, what about yours?" He used to brush off her feelings, hiding behind the excuse of age, calling her childish when the truth was she might have been more grown up than him. In reality, he was just scared, a coward. Clara called him out on it, storming off with Julian, all laughter and warmth directed at Chloe instead of him. He stood there, alone, waving them away with a hollow smile, the apartment suddenly too quiet. But then Chloe stopped him. "That wish I made on the beach. I finally know what it is." He froze, heart pounding. Her words weren't playful this time. They carried weight. And when she smiled, it was soft, almost disarming. "I wish for you to have peace, happiness, and for all your dreams to come true." It landed on him like a feather brushing his heart. He tried to deflect, reminding her it was her birthday, not his. But Chloe wasn't finished. "Time is relentless," she said, glancing at the watch he gave her. "It doesn't stop for anyone. But time gives us chances. And I'm patient." Then, with a half-smile, she walked away to do the dishes, leaving him tangled in her words, sleepless that night. The days rolled on like clockwork. Her SAT scores were stellar, enough for any top law school. Yet, she chose the local university. When he questioned her, she hesitated, and with just one look, he understood. She didn't want to leave him. That was the moment he gently reminded her of her own words, that she was still young, that the world was wide, and she needed to go live it. Through tears, she agreed, whispering a promise. She'd use that time to show him her answer. He didn't take her to the airport. Instead, life fell back into its old rhythm. Except now, it was filled with long silences, moments of staring at nothing. Still, Chloe sent him voice messages, long, detailed, full of her new life. He'd reply with a few words, just enough to let her know he was listening. On her birthday, he even flew to her campus, unannounced, just to catch a glimpse of the world she was building. He stayed hidden, watching her laugh with friends. That night, she texted, "Today is my birthday." He didn't reply until the next morning, lying with the safe excuse, "I fell asleep." She didn't push. She understood. And then, little by little, she showed him, through her travels, through her videos ending with the same quiet wish, "I wish you were here." The world began to notice her story, to sense her hidden love. But still, he stayed silent, only saving her videos in secret. By graduation, Chloe had grown into a woman the whole world could see, strong, brilliant, radiant. And yet, her final message came in the simplest way. A photo of the watch he'd given her, captioned, "Time isn't the answer, but the answer is in time." For years, and she had given him her answer. This time, he showed up, standing at the university gates, waiting. And when she ran toward him, breathless and flushed, declaring she wanted to make it official, he simply said the words she'd been waiting for, "I agree." The crowd stared, but she didn't care. She threw herself into his arms, laughing, crying, asking if it was real. And finally, he quieted her with a kiss. When people later asked why he finally gave in, his reply was simple. Because she wanted it, and I wanted to stop running from happiness. From there, life wasn't perfect. It never is. But together, they faced it. She built her career, reclaimed what was stolen from her, and came home exhausted but unbroken. He held her through it all, and when he finally opened his mother's letter, years later, Chloe gave him the space to grieve. His mother's words were simple, yet heavy. Don't carry the past. Don't live in hatred. Don't forget, you deserve love. He folded the letter, stepped outside into the sun, and for the first time, he let himself believe it.